We really need to be thoughtful in the way that we build this so that we're not just building another, large hotel chain that does everything like the way that it's been done for centuries, right? It was really about how can you create this balance between the impact that we're making on the planet and on the communities in which we exist.
All right, folks, this week we are serving up something truly special, fresh from my recent trip to India. I had the pleasure of being hosted by none other than Shruti Shibulal, one of Fortune India's most powerful women and a trailblazer in hospitality, business, and wellness. To make this episode even more unique, it is our first collaboration with my celebrity chef brother Abang Brian and his new podcast, Hungry Immigrant. Shruti was just the perfect guest for both our shows. As a next generation leader from the Shibulal family, she's redefining the future of hospitality with a focus on sustainability, cultural heritage, and deep community impact. Together, we rolled up our sleeves in the kitchen at Tamara's Lilac Hotel, diving into her journey from family traditions to leading Tamara Leisure Experiences. In this conversation, we'll explore her bold vision, the values that drive her, and the lessons she's learned in one of the world's largest and fastest growing economies. Join us as we celebrate the flavors, the heritage, and the profound impact of a change maker who's blending purpose with success on her own terms.
So what she does is all these business people, and all I do is talk about food, right? So we were looking for someone who is both food, culture, and also business, right?
Yes.
So, and because this is the first time we're doing this collaboration, we're both brothers and sisters. We were looking also for someone who shared our values, and we found this very interesting person who is your personal friend, actually.
Yes.
And the person is
Shruti Shibulal. All right, so we are in Shruti's kitchen at the Lilac, and it seems that she does this all the time, but we wanted to start here for this collaboration episode because we believe that so much of our childhood still shapes us today.
Yeah.
And in childhood, when you think about fond memories, it's always built around, as my brother would remind me, actually food.
Yeah.
There's emotion. There's, Asian style. We always talk over the dinner table, right? And you have chosen this dish in this very special time. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and why you chose this for our starting point.
Sure. So firstly, thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely honored to be, the first to be within this collab. It's really special. So thank you so much. So we are cooking Ada Pradaman, which is a type of payasam. And the way that this is cooked is with coconut milk, rice flakes, and jaggery. So it's a sweet dish that we usually have at the very end of the meal. It's really special. You can see that nice color and texture. It's just one of my favorite dishes, honestly. I love payasams in general, which is, the sweet that we have at the end.
So this has been cooked down and it's been simmering for a bit, and then what?
Yeah. So now we're going to top it off, and to do that, we're going to be using some ghee, some coconut. We're going to be roasting that within the ghee, and then some cashew nuts and raisins.
So what does this dish remind you of in childhood? Like, what is the significance of this dish here for you?
So we'll be having an Ornam Sadhya. And Ornam is in Kerala, which is where my family is from in the south of India, is the largest festival that we have. It's the most important festival. And really, the main thing is we eat. So in the morning, you get up and we create this flower arrangement outside of our home. And, we use petals. In fact, we sit as a family, we pick the petals, and then you create this design and you decorate it and everything. And then you welcome people into your homes. And usually in Kerala, there'll be people sort of like dropping in, dropping out, that sort of a thing. And in fact, Onam in Kerala is a much longer celebration. Here in Bangalore, where, we've kind of convenienced ourselves. And so now we restrain ourselves to just one day of really, really strong eating. And usually, it's a very elaborate meal, right? So you have your rice and you have these various dishes. And for me, with Sadhya, the thing that I'm very particular about is the order of service. So there's a certain order in which somebody must serve you, or like we also said, like, I mean, I have served several times as well, right? You have to do it in a specific order, and that's how you get the flavor.
You learned this as a child. This was like passed down by your parents who insisted this.
Yeah. So my mom makes a phenomenal sadhya. I'm a little spoiled. I don't like to eat out the sadhyas. Like I like my home sadhya really, because she's a great cook, and so like there's always sort of this variety on the leaf, on the banana leaf on which we have. And yeah, so I mean, I've been having it since I was a kid, and I think I'm somebody who grew up all over the place a little bit. Like I only lived in Kerala myself only for a year, but it's a tradition that has traveled with us, right? As a family, wherever we've gone, and something that we've shared within, of course, our immediate family, but then our extended family, our friends, our, you know, friends who become like family, all of that. And so it's become this wonderful tradition every year of, welcoming people into the home to have this meal, and really just spending time. Like the festival, the best food, it's about spending time together and really just having a moment to, be together in a happy moment, I think, as any sort of chill festival should be, really.
But I think also like what you highlighted is very, very interesting because I always believe food is not just food. And yeah, I mean, food is commensality, is coming together and all that. But like what you just particularly said about the service, right? And this is what I think is missing from society today because just by following that, it teaches discipline, I feel. It teaches a child that certain order needs to be followed.
Yeah.
And it's very deep in its meaning. And
So my son is 8, but I remember the last Onam, I had him serving.
yeah,
Right. So like different groups of people are sitting, you sit in a row, and like you have people come around and they serve. So I had finished eating, he had finished eating. So then the next group of people are sitting. So I made sure that he went around and he served, and he learned that tradition. I mean, he's a very young kid. He can't carry like the big vats of buy some of this, but he can do quite a lot. And what happens is as you're eating, you ask for refresh, right? When something is finished on your leaf, you ask somebody to bring it again. And so like he was doing that job, and he was going back and forth and getting little bits and things. So I think it's a beautiful thing. Now I feel like I've passed it down to the next generation, and I'm sure it'll continue. Yeah.
So we should continue to do this. A question that popped to my mind is you talked about your son serving. And of course, you know, the work that I do, we're all about women-led ventures, and stereotypes are deeply ingrained in culture. Is this the norm that a boy would be serving at a festival?
To be fair, my family is not that traditional.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very sort of mixed household. In fact, it is funny though, in Kerala, a lot of the families are matriarchal. Like land would get passed down, property, wealth, whatever would get passed down.
So when you look at this food, when you think about your family, what comes to mind in terms of like something that your parents have said to you that still sticks to you today as a leader?
Oh, interesting. When I look at this food, I mean, I just want to eat it. No, I think, there's, you guys were talking about family values, right?
Yeah.
And family sticking by each other. And I think that like food is this thing that, especially for us, like it brings to mind that shared history and that shared culture and the value of having shared experiences, like what you guys are doing today, right? You're creating new memories. And I hope, I mean, for me, I guess the thing has been like our family, we've joked about how we don't really celebrate enough, right? Like I don't know, maybe in some Asian families, like, again, you kind of mute the successes at times, right? We're not like super loud being like, oh, we did this, we did that, right? And so the celebrations are not that many. And so when you do have a celebration, it's really special. And so to make sure that you continue to make those memories and have those experiences together, I think that's really special. And to make sure that that tradition continues, that's important.
this is just one portion of the whole platter that we on the banana leaf. So I think we should get to that because I'm hungry too.
Yes, this has made us hungry. So let's continue on.
We are in the midst of being served the full dish of the sadhya that's during the Onam festival. There's usually 24 items on this, you were saying, Shruti?
Yeah, 20 plus.
20 plus.
Firstly, I think the banana leaf is a sustainable way to eat in a sense, right? It's biodegradable. I've always loved the color of the sadhya. I think there's a real beautiful sort of diversity on the plate. You kind of eat with your eyes a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
And of course, the flavors are very distinctive. That's one thing that I've always found is really interesting is that every single thing on the sadhya will have a very distinctive, different taste. And so when you have it with your rice, it will give you a different sort of a flavor.
From that, segueing from that about, the history of your family and how it's taught you to become the leader that you are today. We work with a lot of family offices. As you know, you've been helping me, next generations. The question is always, what do I do, right? As the next generation, you're unique in that you're second generation, you've witnessed the wealth growth. How has that shaped how you're thinking about your position of privilege today and what you want to be doing?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, again, there's like an evolution of thought, right? Like I'm nearing 40. And so like, I'd like to think that I'm a bit wiser than I was a few years ago. And you introspect a lot, I think, around this. When I was thinking about building a business or like what I wanted this business to be or become, I've always had this feeling about, we need to be responsible. Like we really need to be thoughtful in the way that we build this so that we're not just building another, large hotel chain that does everything like the way that it's been done for centuries, right? It was really about how can you create this balance between the impact that we're making on the planet and on the communities in which we exist, positive or negative, and how can you balance that out with good business, right? And I think that that's fundamental really to the way that I think that now, like any business that I would want to put my energy into at this point.
I think you described it in a conversation you had with someone else, and I was like, oh my God, this is the new 3 Ps, right? People, planet, and profitability. When you said it that way, I was like, oh my God, that makes absolute sense. And I think those 3 Ps, they describe, I think, who you are and the way you look at business, your philosophy, and what Tamara is also from the short period of what I've experienced of Tamara and the hospitality that is here. And I feel it because like, I'm here. People, as in not only the people that surround the community, but the people that work here, I feel it from them. Like they feel happy working here.
I mean, we've really tried to drill it in, right? I think that it's one thing to build a business with intention, right? I mean, sure, you can have intention, but to really roll it down into your process, into your goals, your KRAs, your KPIs, that is actually the hard part at the end of the day, right? If you work in gender and like trying to make sure that more women entrepreneurs come to the forefront. And I think that in order for things like that to happen within an organization, if I'm talking about women leaders in my organization, like I need to have goals for that. And everybody needs to be accountable and moving towards that same goal. It can't just be fluff. Okay, we stand for women. Like it cannot be just that. It's really got to be built into the system because as a business, we're also scaling, right? If we were to stay one resort or one property and that was it, right? If we were going to stay sort of stagnant in that sense, you can do it sort of ad hoc. Like you can make sure that like you have a good diversity quotient or you have, your environmental practices are strong. But if you want to scale and you want to build this sort of like transnational or global business, you have to make sure that it goes much deeper into the goals of the organization and also into the culture of the organization. That's been challenging, right? Because when you're scaling, you're also inviting a lot of people from various different cultures into your organization who have different understandings or different tolerances in a sense, right? And so how do you induct them into the culture that you are placing for that organization? And how do you make sure that that is sort of, it goes beyond skin deep? That's difficult. It's something that we are actively, I would say, like working on constantly.
Yeah. So responsible leadership, love everything that you're espousing here and believe, very deeply about changing the systems and processes. That's what we do a lot with our venture funds as well to be able to get the results, right? It's not enough to have that intention. It's also it needs to be reflected in your systems and processes to create the different results that you want. Tell us a little bit about Tamara. Why Tamara?
Originally was the family was investing in land, quite plainly put. It was land that was going to get developed into hospitality properties.
Right.
And what happened is we started building the first one and started going out to international operators, right? Like the big names that you would have heard of. And nobody wanted to operate it. It's located in a place called Coorg. And Coorg was at that time an up and coming destination, right? So there was one big hotel that was there, but it was mainly known for homestays. It wasn't known for hotels.
Right.
And so there was a lot of, I think, sort of will it work, will it won't work at that point. What I understood is that nobody really wanted to operate it. So here comes me. I'm in business school.
Yeah.
And probably very much overconfident, a little bit naive, and maybe a little bit rightfully so overconfident also at the time, because I was probably like, it was 26, 27. I was like, well, why can't we operate it? Right. So we should operate it. And so that's how the operating company got made. So there was a person who was in charge at the time, and they built out the operating company, and so that's how we actually got into running hotels. It was a funny way to get there, but we got there. But then once we decided, okay, this is what we're doing, then we said, okay, well, then this is the way we want to do it, right? So the property itself was built on the same tenets of sustainability and responsibility. And so when the operating side of it came in, we also wanted to make sure that the values reflected there as well. It was quite radical for the time, right? In 2012, you didn't have properties at that scale that were looking at sort of eco-centric practices.
Nobody was talking about ecotourism and everything like that.
Yeah.
It was very light. And you saw it, like one thing was that, and even today to an extent, ecotourism is sometimes thought of as like, it's very boutique.
Yes.
Or it's very luxury. It doesn't have to be. I mean, tourism happens mostly like across the spectrum, right? Especially in India, like our majority of our travel is in the mid segment, and its majority is for pilgrimage. So why only limit ecotourism or like this idea of responsible hospitality to just the luxury segment? It should exist everywhere. So like Lilac, for instance, where we're at right now, is a mid-segment hotel, but like we make sure that the same tenants are here. So like we have solar here, right? For instance, so a lot of our energy is renewable. If you go into the rooms, like the amenities are very thoughtfully, designed, and we're able to do that because of the scale that we have, right? And so the prices have become more tenable even at the mid-segment. So that's how we actually ended up creating Tamara. I took over as CEO in 2018. So I kind of, I had a few different roles. I had learned, so we do construction and then we do operations. And so I spent a lot of time in that's part of the business and the project side of it. I was doing strategy. And then I came into this role in 2018. Yeah.
Wow. And how has it evolved since you started with the early days?
Yeah.
Tell us about that journey.
For many years, we were like really a single property organization, right? So like very, very small. And today we're 9 properties. We doubled in the last 1 year in terms of the number of keys that we have, and even revenue. It's shot forward quite a lot. We also own 4 properties in Germany.
Yeah, you mentioned.
We've bought some land in Bhutan, and so we're about to start development in Bhutan as well. So like we're growing, we're growing significantly. We have a lot of properties in the pipeline right now in India as well. We have 3 different brands. So Lilac, Obai Tamara, which is our upscale business brand, and then the Tamara Resorts, which is our luxury product. And within that, we also have a very special property called Amal Tamara, which is our Ayurvedic hospital, which is really special.
Amazing.
Which you were telling us about that because you came from a generation of Ayurvedic practitioners.
My grandfather was an Ayurvedic doctor, yes.
Wow.
And he focused on mental disorders, in fact.
So actually, a lot of your childhood, even as we're digging into your favorite food here, is now reflected in elements of your leadership, the sustainability elements, the wellness, the people, the togetherness.
Those who came before me were really rich in character in a sense. I hardly knew my grandfather and my grandmother on my father's side, but like one was an Ayurvedic doctor and the other worked in excise. On my mother's side, they were farmers. So like farming is an agriculture and food is something really special there.
Food, right?
Yeah, and actually my mother, like the story that I remember hers telling of her mother has often been about how like growing up, like farmers in India don't make a lot of money, right? Like the system does not support. She's told me how like if somebody came asking for food, like my grandmother would go without food. She would give her food to that person and she would go without food. And so I think there's this element of, being really knowing where your food comes from and giving that value as well, like knowing that there's been sweat and toil that has gone into making sure that that meal comes to your plate. Yeah, I think that's also something that I've seen. And
even that, like what your grandmother did, is also reflected now in the philanthropic work that you do. So many things that you guys do, including one which I really am attracted to, which is you train people to work in the service industry, right? To work as chefs.
Yeah. So this was my project. So the philanthropic, so the Shibulal Family Philanthropic Initiatives is 26 years old or so, and has mainly focused on education. What we've done, we have one of the largest scholarship schemes in the country, and what it does is it identifies students of merit, but from very dire need, and ensures that they have the money to be able to continue their education for as long as they want to, right, in the field that they want to continue in. So it's very special because now you have thousands of students who have come through it. You have like thousands more of applications that come through. Something like I heard 90,000 applications for like 3,000 seats this year. Yeah, some crazy numbers. But that's to say like the need in India for a good education is really, really high. And it's a lot of these students desperately need the money to be able to continue.
Yeah, I think this is really an interesting segue here to talk about your philanthropic initiatives. But before that, I think it's important to also frame, I guess, your vision, some of the challenges along the way. I mean, we've talked, about the good stuff, right? But of course, along the way, I mean, we're very real on both of our podcasts here, right? About the personalities, about the challenges. We've had tears, we've had frustrations vented on the show as well by different people in ways that you'd never expect. What is one, I guess, key challenge that you had that people would not know and would not expect in building this business?
I mean, there's been many, right? We make mistakes all the time. And there's smaller mistakes, there's bigger mistakes. Like for instance, I would say in the last year, like there's we launched a hotel that I wish we had done a little bit differently because I feel like we haven't set it up exactly the way that we would have wanted to. And that was based on an assumption that, oh, people know us, like we're an established brand, like they'll come to us just because we have a good product. And that's not necessarily true, right? There's more effort that was required. So I know like for a fact, like I'm still dealing with the sort of consequences of that and trying to make up for it at this point. But there are other things, right? I mean, I think hiring is something where you have to hire the right people. I've tried to become better with identifying leaders that suit the culture of the organization and being much more sort of almost more intuitive about it. Like I think when I was younger, I was thinking about this. Like I feel like I was a lot more malleable in a sense from the outside for better or for worse, right?
Interesting word, yeah.
And as you grow, you become a little bit tougher, right? Because you become, maybe we become, I mean, you can look at it in a positive way or in a negative way, right? Like, okay, we become tougher to crack. Like maybe we're a bit more stubborn. But at the same time, you're also a lot more confident in your own voice and in your own opinions and in your own experience, right? You give a lot more weight to like, well, I've seen this or I know what I'm doing here. Like, you give a lot more value to yourself in a sense, right? And I felt like I've gone through that through my journey. All of that is like all the mistakes that I've made, for instance, in hiring or in, certain things. Like I think those have hopefully been translated into learnings, rather than sit there. I've had heartbreaks in a sense. I remember the first big one was when we were starting the first restaurant. So it would have been again like 23, I think. We signed a lease with a major media company for space in their building. Got the architect on board. We paid the architect, however much money to do the design. And we're supposed to mobilize on like, let's say September 1st, right? September 1st, they don't hand over. September 2nd, they're still not handing over. September 3rd, I'm sitting in their office. I'm like, listen, you guys told us you were going to give us the space. Like, where's the space? And they're like, well, we're this. What are you going to do about it? We're media. What are you going to do about it? Right. And so it was a very eye-opening moment. At that age, I was very confident. No, I wouldn't say confident, but I was very like maybe
Trusting.
Yeah. To have somebody like, and here's a situation where like, I was like, okay, business happens this way. And to be sort of have it thrown back at you. And I think that has to do with partners, right? Like picking the right partners, picking the right people that you want to work with or the right groups that you want to work with.
So, and on that point, I need to ask this question because you're a next generation leader, and a struggle that I hear from a lot of my guests, a lot of my friends that I work with is, how do I find my own space? How do I carve my own space, have my own voice without losing the honor of the family without losing the element of I also want to honor everything my family has built.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I mean,
Yeah.
but like, it's also, I mean, I've been really lucky. So my dad has been chairing my board for the last couple of years. I think as long as I've been CEO, maybe longer. And so he's always been in a really great supportive position of me. And I think what I have always really appreciated is that he leaves it to me in a sense, right? Like the operations and sort of the wins and the mistakes. Yes, he's definitely there as a protection, but like I think my ability to approach him for advice, for help, for support. Like, I mean, let's also not forget, like, I have two young children, right? Sometimes I need a hand. And so to be able to go to him and sort of be like, listen, I need a hand for like, let's say the next. And so I think having that time to spend with him has been incredible because then you kind of start learning from each other in a sense, right? And you learn that, okay, like, yes, it is mine. Like I feel fully accountable. I feel fully responsible, but I also have this support, which is there at my back.
We're coming to the end of our conversation, right? Because like I can sit here, my sister talking to you.
Yeah.
I can add more rice and more rice and more rice. I'm running out of rice. We're running out of time. But I think what really talking to you really touches me is that like the food, like I think your story is like the satya that we see here. It's like elements of your life coming together, and the spices getting to you.
Flavor enough to follow on what
Yeah.
you was thinking here. The many flavors that make your life. What does success look to you at the end of this? What do you see for yourself, and where does this, I guess, also leave, the family legacy at this point in your generation?
Okay, success I find is like it's such a hard one, right?
Yeah.
Like I honestly I think it's a moving target. Like you never quite get there, Like you get there, but then it's fleeting and you're like, okay.
It moved.
Yeah, it moved. And I've constantly had that, right? Like there are things that I'm trying to do. This is the Adapradaman that we prepared.
Oh,
that we
that's
made.
dessert. Yes. Yeah. Excellent timing. Love this.
So, I mean, for me, like what I would love to do with Tamara is really to, like I said, establish this institution. I feel like India has definitely the ability to absorb another great hotel institution, right? And if I can do that in a way which is really aligned to this value system that we have here and like build that culture, then I think that would be a really beautiful thing.
Right.
The other thing, like the reason I love hospitality, besides the fact that like, okay, the experience, the food, all of that is part of it. And those are all, the pleasures of it, is that it's actually one of the largest employers in the country. And your ability to create employment through hotels and hospitality in general and tourism in general is massive, especially in a country like India where jobs are needed, right? We have this growing population of very young people. We need jobs. And so it really feels like, okay, there is this element of like service to country and service to the people of this nation. I genuinely want to really like stretch that as much as we can and see how many jobs like and valuable, meaningful, well paying, good benefited jobs, right? Like so that it changes people's lives. I mean, this is what again, another thing I love about this industry is like the barrier to entry to come into the industry is really low. You don't need degrees and diplomas. Like you can start at the bottom and you can work your way up. And that's an incredible thing. Not a lot of industries you're able to do that anymore. Yeah. And so I think that a country like this, it needs this. We need more companies that are working with this population and are able to really pull them up, give them careers, give them upward mobility, and pull their families out of poverty in a lot of cases, even, which is what I do with the philanthropy. I feel like that for me, that would be success. If I hesitate to say a number in terms of the employment that we create, but like today we're at about 1,200. I would love to take that way up, and really create that number of jobs and have a positive impact.
What do you think you could share with people like us who are here for the first time in India? And how would you describe India? I'm obsessed about food, right? So I always use food as an example. Internationally, the perception of Asian food is very varied. I'll give you an example of Chinese food being considered just takeout, or Indian food being just curries, right? What is it about India? What is it about Indian food and culture that you want to tell the world?
I mean, you hit it right on the head. Like it's the diversity in our food. I mean, India is such a varied place, right? We have several languages. We have several subcultures. We have so much diversity in the kinds of ingredients that are going into our food. There is no way that the taste and the flavor remains the same across, right? Like everything is different from north to south to east to west. Like the variation is so much. So I would encourage people to go seek out variety in that, right? Like I think nowadays what I'm seeing is at least South Indian food is getting a little bit more of a platform in some places, which I think is great, right? Like so food like this, you would have never seen in the West till like fairly recently, because it's just it, I mean, like you said, right? Like it's thought of as like, traditional Indian food in the West was always sort of this Delhi, Punjabi, like that was the cuisine, which is beautiful, but it doesn't represent the entire country at all. Right. And I think that if you are able to get that access and understand the nuance between these different regions, then I mean your palate will just absolutely change because there's just so much variety. Even in this state. So we're in Karnataka. Bangalore is a very cosmopolitan city, right? Most of the people who live in Bangalore are not from Bangalore. It's because of the IT industry that so many have come in. And we were, I think, originally a retirement town.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 30 years
Retirement town to Silicon Valley of India.
Yeah, everything changed in the last 25, 30 years. So,
and you've lived it, actually.
I did. Yeah, I very much did. Yeah.
That is
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah.
Wow.
And I grew up in this
That is your
neighborhood, which
timeline.
was a very quiet place and is now not so quiet anymore. But Bangalore itself, like, I mean, if you have the chance to explore, like, you can see that diversity, right? But Karnataka, if you go to northern Karnataka, food is different. If you go to the coast, food is different. If you go to the hills, the food is different. Like if you go to Coorg, where one of our resorts is, one of the most traditional foods there is pandi curry, which is pork. Which is not something you'll see like in most of the other, the rest of the country. If you go down to Kerala, beef is, one of the most consumed foods, right? Here, if you eat the doshas here versus those in Tamil Nadu, like across the border, an hour from here, totally different. Samba, same thing, right? Like totally different. So I just think that, don't put one label on it and try to open your mind and try different things and, taste the rainbow.
Because you mentioned sambar and you mentioned about tasting and keeping your mind open. This is like a joint collaboration between my sister's show and my show. So on my show,
Yes,
every
the celebrity
episode,
chef has to do this.
every
talked about
episode, we actually I travel the world talking to Asian people all around the world about their food and how it's changed and whatever not. And I travel with 3 different sambals. So it's usually like I describe it as a chili chutney. It's spicy, it's sweet. There's so many variations of it. Like what you mentioned, like people would always go like, oh, sambal is a sambal, but no, there are so many variations of it. So I brought that with me. And we're gonna taste it. And I always ask people which is their favorite. So one is made by me. One is made by one of the most famous nasi lemak chain. Nasi lemak is our national dish that comes with the sambal.
For the international audience, because Billion Dollar Moves, we have a lot more investors that may not know what's nasi lemak. It is
coconut rice served with different condiments. Fatty rice. It's called nasi lemak because lemak means coconut, right? Fat, coconut fat, right? So it's served with different condiments like anchovies, peanuts.
There's egg as well.
There's egg, cucumber. So these 3 sambals, one is mine, one is by one of the top influencers now in Malaysia, and one is by a nasi lemak chain. So we'll see if you pick mine or not.
But do you not have to have it with the rice or like on its own?
No, so you can have sambal with anything. You can have it with noodles, you can have it with rice, you can have it with fish, whatever. So we have some crackers, which actually I got it from the corner, one of the restaurants, and we call this the Sambal Survey. All you have to do is just grab one of these crackers here and taste one of the sambals one by one and just tell me what you think. And my sister can join in as well. I will not join in because I, by sight, know which is my sambal.
And you want me to rate it?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the first time I'm doing this on the show too.
So walk us through. What are you tasting? How does it taste?
It's yummy.
Okay.
Is there fish?
I can't tell you. But what are you
At the
tasting?
end of it, we'll reveal it.
Okay. I mean, there's chili, there's vinegar,
Some sour elements.
some sour element.
So, like,
Okay, next
in
one.
general, all the sambals, the basic of sambals for our international audience, it's usually chili, onions, that gives them the sweetness, and it's actually a combination. It has to be a balance of flavor, so it's sweet, spicy, salty, sour, everything all together. And yeah, so usually there's chili. There's this one hits you, huh?
This one's got more of a kick.
Mm. Yeah. Cool. Cool.
A big bite of that too.
because the first one made you ambitious, right? The first one's kind of
Quite
sweet.
sweet. But I feel like that's why this can't be his, because it's like it's more. I feel like this is more for the massive.
Okay. You have to help me get the third
Okay,
one.
and the last one.
Actually, that's the first time I did this test like this.
Yeah.
Now I'm a bit confused.
Mm.
She has to guess first.
No, it's not about guessing which is mine. It's like
which is
guessing
your
which
favorite?
is your
Which
favorite.
is your favorite?
Oh, they're all good.
Okay, which is your favorite?
Which would you be able to eat every single day?
Oh man, I could eat all of them, honestly.
It's very politically correct and nice.
No, I'm serious. I feel like this one's a little bit heavier.
Mm.
It feels like a little bit heavier. I like this one. It's got the kick. This one's a bit mildish. I think I like this one. So like,
Are you gonna reveal it?
No, which one did you like?
I like the third one.
Okay. So if you want to find out whether they chose my sambal or not, you got to check out the YouTube video. The link is in the description. We got to collect the views, right?
Yes.
So check it out. I can tell you, you're the first person to choose this sambal. Of all my 56 episodes that I've done so far, you're the first person to choose this sambal.
nice. Okay.
Interesting.
It's not a good thing. But to eat every day, I'll take the third one. Now,
That's-
rapid fire.
Rapid fire, okay.
$1 billion question. So as you're drinking up some water here, first thing that comes to mind, right? So these are quick fire questions. Your personality type in one word.
Open-minded?
Open-minded. Oh, I love the stubbornness about you. You choose 2 words for one word. I love it. What is something people don't know about you that they have to see to believe?
I love cricket. I love cricket. Like it's a bit of an obsession.
What kind of leaders do you hire? We talked about this a lot, but what kind of leaders?
Hire people who are able to build their teams well, right? So like good people managers.
Failure is
Learning.
not investment advice, but favorite investing hack or tip.
I mean, so the one thing that I tell people is diversify, like manage your risk. Like don't just look at your returns, like make sure that you also manage your risk and look at your risk. And so it's, you have a balanced portfolio.
What's your most used app on your phone right now?
WhatsApp.
First job you got paid for.
I was a teacher's assistant for 3 to 6 year olds in a Montessori school where my brother was. Yeah, he was in 4th grade. And so this was for like really little kids. I got paid $10 an hour. It was great. It was lovely.
When you're pushed against the wall, what is one mantra you live by?
This too will pass.
Must have comfort food.
Oh, so I love dosha. Dosha with chicken curry. So like the coconut milk based chicken curry. Like that's my like, and the doshas need to be like crispy. They need to be really crispy and lots of ghee.
Lots of ghee. Yes.
Ghee is life.
Yes. And we've covered a lot of ground here, but what is one thing you wish more people ask you about that, we even haven't covered perhaps?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I think you guys did a great job.
Yeah.
You guys
We invaded your life.
we talked about everything.
Okay, what are you obsessed with? Or, that you're still learning about, a skill that you're cultivating?
The one thing that I'm not great at, and I think for women entrepreneurs particularly, it's so important to focus on, is networking. I'm not good at it. It's something that I genuinely need to make an effort for. I need to learn I have to learn from the best, really, in terms of how to do it better and how to, strategize better on that. Or just, maybe even like methodologies, like tips and tricks of how to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for all of us to do it and to be good at it, honestly, over time.
So closing words, we've got a lot of next generation leaders, unicorn founders and funders tuning in that have capital on their hands that are able to create an impact. What is your words of advice to them to bring us home here?
I guess this is more of like a hope for the future in a sense. Like I really do hope that people are thinking very wisely about the kinds of businesses and the way that they're building businesses, right? Like we've seen enough businesses treat people badly, do business badly. These certain businesses which have like, grown enormously too fast and then fallen from graces. Like I think that, we should be a little bit more mindful in terms of thinking about the value that we're truly creating. Not, of course, for the entrepreneurs themselves, but also for, the larger society. I just think that, going forward, like the world is in a bit of a precarious situation with things like climate change and all this stuff that's happening, right? Geopolitically and everything. So I just hope that my hope is that more businesses and more entrepreneurs are just mindful of the kinds of impact that they're making.
I love that. And with that, shall we end with something sweet?
So what is this? There was this put on.
What do we do now?
This is boli.
Boli.
It's a dessert.
You can have, so this is the pal paisam, so the milk and the broken rice. And so you just pour it on and then you can mix it up and then you kind of mash it up.
So, while we continue feasting on the satya and like finishing our desserts, thank you very much again for having us, for hosting us. Thank you so much to the Tamara Experience Group and people at Lilac Hotel at Bangalore.
Hospitality Group.
Everybody was so kind and thank you so much.
Yes, and your entire team. We've had a whole, it wasn't just three of us that was dining. This was prepared by your team. Your PR staff,
everybody is involved. This is like the biggest shoot I've ever had.
And this says a lot for him as a celebrity chef.
We pull it out for you guys.
Thank you.
For us at The Hungry Immigrant, my show is called The Hungry Immigrant. We always like to end by inviting people to always keep their plates adventurous and their hearts open.
And at the $1 Billion Moves, we give a high five and say, keep making $1 billion moves. And that's a wrap. And thanks so much for tuning in this week. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow our socials on Sarah Chen Global to get the latest on the show. It would really help me out too if you enjoyed this to rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts and share your favorite episodes with a friend. I'm Sarah Chen-Spellings and you've been listening to $1 Billion Moves.